The twin suns of Zyphora 9 hung low in the sky, painting the barren plains in streaks of red and gold. Dust whipped across the cracked earth, carried by winds that smelled faintly of metal and ozone. The landscape was harsh, unwelcoming. But to Jeb Callahan, it was home. He had spent most of his life here, raising alien livestock, and surviving in a place that no one else would dare call safe. Jeb squinted against the glare, his wide-brimmed hat tilted forward, and adjusted the strap of his weathered backpack. He heard the low hum of the shuttle before he saw it, a small, sleek craft gliding over the plains, kicking up a swirl of red dust as it landed near the edge of his property. Finally, Jeb muttered. He dusted off his pants and walked toward the shuttle. The ramp lowered with a hiss, and out stepped a woman. She was smaller than he expected, moving with careful precision, scanning the terrain with wide, curious eyes. Her hair was tied back, and her white lab coat flapped slightly in the wind. In her hands, she carried a slim case, the kind designed to hold delicate instruments rather than weapons. "You must be Dr. Mira Tanaka," Jeb said, his voice rough but not unkind. "I'm Jeb Callahan. Welcome to the frontier." Mira extended her hand, smiling nervously. "Thank you. It's bigger than I imagined." "Bigger, meaner, and uglier," Jeb replied, a small smirk forming. "You'll get used to it." She laughed softly, adjusting the strap of her case. "I hope so." Jeb motioned for her to follow. "Come on. Let's get you settled. The shuttle won't wait all day, and neither will the weather." They walked across the plains, the soil crunching under their boots. Mira paused several times, taking notes on her digital pad, pointing to plants, insect-like creatures scuttling across the cracked earth, and strange glimmers in the distance. Jeb didn't mind. In fact, he liked it when newcomers were curious. Curiosity kept people alive out here. After an hour, they reached Jeb's small ranch, a cluster of metal and stone structures that looked fragile against the vastness of Zyphora 9. A few low buildings served as living quarters, a storage shed, and a workshop. Around them, the alien livestock grazed creatures that looked part cow, part reptile, with thick scales and glowing eyes. Mira froze for a moment, watching them cautiously. "Are they dangerous?" she asked. "Depends on how you treat them," Jeb said with a shrug. "They respect strength and caution, not fear. Same as most things out here." As they entered the main building, Jeb offered Mira a cup of steaming liquid that smelled faintly of herbs. She accepted it, grateful for the warmth. "First thing you need to know," Jeb said as they sat at a wooden table scarred with years of use. "Life here isn't like the colonies back near the core. Out here, you survive by paying attention, thinking fast, and sometimes taking risks other people won't. And if you ever hesitate, the land or the creatures will make you regret it." Mira nodded, sipping her drink. "I'm here to study the wildlife, record data, and survive." Jeb chuckled. "That's a start. But there's more than just survival. Out here, humans have a way of shaping the world that the galaxy doesn't expect. You'll see." She raised an eyebrow. "Shaping the world?" Jeb's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the red plains stretched endlessly. "Sometimes, to survive, humans have to adapt. Sometimes, we have to control what's trying to control us. By brains, by skill, by stubbornness. That's what separates us from the rest of the galaxy." Mira absorbed his words. She had read stories of human adaptability, of frontier survival. But seeing it in practice was different. These weren't tales of heroic legends, this was practical knowledge, tested by the cruel environment of Zyphora 9. Before she could ask more, a loud roar echoed across the plains, making the ground tremble beneath their feet. Mira's eyes widened. "What was that?" she asked, gripping the edge of the table. Jeb's expression stayed calm, almost bored. That's just one of our neighbors." Mira frowned. "Neighbors?" He chuckled darkly. "You'll see. Out here, neighbors don't knock on your door for sugar. They knock for territory. That thing is a Zyphorian Grazlord. Big, fast, smart, and not fond of people. I'll handle it, don't worry. Mira stared at him, unsure if she was witnessing confidence or insanity. You're going to do that? Jeb leaned back in his chair, unbothered. It'll be over quickly. For the rest of the afternoon, Mira followed Jeb as he prepared for the encounter. He checked equipment, sharpened tools, and studied the plains with a hunter's eyes. Mira noticed how effortlessly he moved, how he anticipated every sound and movement, almost as if he was part of the land itself. You really know this place, she said, trying to mask her awe. Jeb shrugged. You learn. You pay attention. The land talks if you listen. Most people hear nothing. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples, Jeb led Mira to a high ridge overlooking the plains. From here, the Grazlord's movements were clearer. The massive creature moved like liquid shadow, its glowing eyes scanning, muscles rippling under its scaled hide. It was larger than she imagined, and the intelligence in its gaze made her stomach tighten. Beautiful, Mira whispered. Deadly, Jeb corrected. But beautiful. That's the frontier for you. Nothing is safe, but everything is alive. Everything tests you. And we test back, Mira shivered. Both from the cold and from the realization of what survival here really meant. She had come expecting data, samples, and observations. Instead, she was about to witness human cunning in its rawest form, risking life and limb, not because she had to, but because humans thrived on challenge. Jeb turned to her, his eyes reflecting the last rays of the twin suns. Tomorrow, you'll see what humans do when the galaxy underestimates us. We don't just survive. We adapt. We fight. We win. Mira swallowed hard, trying to reconcile the romantic notions of human ingenuity she had read about with the reality before her. She knew tomorrow would change her understanding of life in the frontier forever. As night fell, the plains glowed faintly with bioluminescent flora and scattered fires of distant ranches. Mira lay in her small quarters, staring at the ceiling. The sounds of alien creatures moving in the dark filled the air, rhythmic, eerie, alive. Somewhere outside, the Grazlord prowled, unaware that humans were already planning their next move. She thought about Jeb's words. It'll be over quickly. She wondered if she believed him, or if she simply had no choice but to trust. And deep in the plains, a pair of glowing eyes watched the tiny human settlement. It moved slowly, calculating, waiting. The frontier had many rules, but one was clear. Humans were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. Mira closed her eyes, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. She had come to study life on Zyphora 9, but it seemed life here would study her first, and when the time came, she would witness human adaptability in action, raw, unfiltered, and unrelenting. The night stretched on, and the twin moons cast pale light over the rugged plains. Somewhere in the distance, a low growl reminded Mira that survival on Zyphora 9 was not a story for the faint-hearted. It was a challenge. And humans accepted challenges. The morning sun rose slowly over the plains of Zyphora 9, spilling pale gold over the jagged rocks and glowing flora. Mira stood outside the small ranch, adjusting her sleeves and squinting at the horizon. The land looked peaceful, almost beautiful in the soft light, but she knew better. Out here, peace was a thin veil, easily torn by predators or weather, or the unexpected. Jeb emerged from the barn, carrying a coil of thick netting over his shoulder and a long staff tipped with metal spikes. He walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced danger countless times. Mira followed him, carrying her data pad and a small kit of sensors she intended to use on the Grazlord. Ready for your first real lesson in frontier survival? Jeb asked, his voice calm but edged with authority. Mira nodded, though her stomach fluttered. I think so. I hope so. You will be, Jeb replied. But remember, this isn't a field trip. Nothing we do here is by accident. You'll need to pay attention, keep your wits, and trust humans do strange things for a reason. They walked in silence across the plains, the Graze Lord's glowing eyes faintly visible in the distance. Mira kept a careful eye on the creature, noting its size, speed, and the way it moved like water over rocks. It was alive, alert, and intelligent. Jeb stopped and turned toward her. "All right, here's the plan." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You have a plan?" "Of course," Jeb said with a grin. "Humans always have a plan. Sometimes more than one. You'll see." "Why?" "Why?" Jeb said with a grin. He crouched to examine the ground, pointing to tracks and broken tufts of alien grass. "This Graze Lord thinks it owns these plains. Smart creature. Fast. Strong. Most species would run at the sight of it. Not humans. Humans adapt. Humans control." Mira frowned, unsure if she liked the tone, but she didn't interrupt. She was here to learn. Jeb began pacing slowly, outlining their approach. "We'll need 3 things: a trap, a diversion, and a sedative." "The trap is this net," he said, gesturing to the coil over his shoulder, made of ultra-durable fibers. "It can hold creatures 5 times the size of the Grazlord. If we set it right." Mira frowned. "You're going to throw a net at it?" Jeb chuckled. "Not just throw. We'll lure it into a narrow canyon. Once it's there, the net will drop from above. It'll struggle. Sure. But that's where the sedative comes in." He pulled a small vial from his pocket. The liquid inside glimmered faintly in the sun. 1 injection, quick, precise. Done. No suffering. No prolonged fight. We control it. Then study it safely. Humans make efficiency an art. Mira stared at him, equal parts impressed and horrified. "You're really going to do that?" Jeb's grin widened. "It'll be over quickly. That's what I said yesterday, remember?" Mira swallowed hard. The thought of subduing such a massive, intelligent creature seemed impossible. But she was beginning to see why Jeb's confidence didn't feel reckless. Humans on Zyphora 9 weren't reckless. They were precise. They used brains, instincts, and experience to survive. They began preparing. Jeb guided Mira as they carried the net and sedative canisters toward a narrow canyon a few kilometers away. Along the way, he taught her to read the land. "See that rock formation?" he asked, pointing to a jagged ridge. "That's not just scenery. It's cover. Watch the wind. Listen to the sounds. Nature gives clues. Humans pay attention. That's why we survive." Mira nodded, trying to absorb everything. She had read about human ingenuity, but seeing it in action was different. Every step, every glance, every decision had purpose. When they reached the canyon, Jeb crouched and studied the entrance. Perfect. The Grazlord will run in here thinking it has room to maneuver. But this narrow path limits its options. It can't turn fast. Can't dodge easily. That's when the net comes down. Mira's pulse quickened. "And if it doesn't go where we want?" Jeb's eyes met hers, calm, unwavering. "Then we adapt. That's what humans do. We improvise. We survive." They began setting the trap, securing the net to rocks above the canyon. Jeb showed Mira how to fasten the ropes, test the tension, and ensure it would release at the right moment. She worked quickly, impressed by the simplicity and effectiveness of the setup. No high-tech lasers, no force fields, just skill, planning, and understanding of both the land and the creature. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher, beating down on their backs. Sweat ran down Mira's face, and her arms ached, but she felt a thrill she had never experienced in her academic labs. This was alive, real, dangerous. And humans thrived here. As they finished, Jeb handed her a small communicator. "You'll stay here and monitor the sensors. Keep track of its position, speed, and behavior. Data is valuable, but survival comes first. Don't panic. Don't overreact. Trust the plan." Mira nodded, sliding the communicator into her pocket. She felt a mix of fear and excitement. The Graslord was near, and soon they would see humans in action. Jeb signaled, and from the ridge above, he spotted movement. The Graslord emerged from the plains, eyes glowing, muscles rippling as it prowled toward the canyon. Mira's heart pounded. She could feel the creature's intelligence, its awareness of the humans nearby. Yet it moved cautiously, curious but not yet aggressive. "Remember," Jeb said, whispering, "we're not here to hurt it. We're here to understand it. Humans survive by controlling what could control us, not by destroying everything in sight. That's what makes us different." The Graslord approached the canyon, sniffing the air, its eyes flicking between the humans and the narrow path ahead. Mira watched, holding her breath. Every muscle in her body was tense, every sense alert. Jeb took a deep breath and gave a subtle signal. The trap was ready. The net, suspended above, waited. The sedative syringe rested in his hand. The liquid glimmering faintly, the creature stepped into the canyon. Its movements were cautious, but confident. Mira's pulse raced as she monitored its behavior on her sensors. She saw the calculations in Jeb's mind. Timing, angles, predictions of every possible movement. Humans weren't just reacting, they were anticipating. Suddenly, the Graslord stopped, sensing something amiss. Its head swung toward them, nostrils flaring. Mira froze, expecting the creature to charge, but Jeb remained calm, motionless, waiting. He had studied it, understood its psychology, and knew how to react. After a tense moment, the Graslord resumed forward. Jeb signaled, and the net fell. The massive creature struggled, thrashing violently, but the canyon walls kept it contained. Mira's heart raced as she observed, amazed at the effectiveness of a simple human strategy. Jeb moved quickly, injecting the sedative into the creature's thick neck. Within moments, its movement slowed, and it sank to the ground, eyes dimming. Mira let out a shaky breath. Awed, humans had done it not with brute force alone, but with brains, patience, and courage. Jeb stood, wiping sweat from his brow. "See? Over quickly." Mira approached cautiously, still in disbelief. I didn't think it was possible." Jeb smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Nothing is impossible if you understand the rules. Pay attention, and trust human instinct. That's what makes us strong out here." As the creature lay sedated, Mira realized the truth of his words. Humans weren't the strongest or the fastest species in the galaxy, but they were adaptable, clever, and fearless. They could survive and thrive where others would fail. The plains of Zyphera 9 stretched endlessly around them, beautiful and dangerous, alive with unknown threats. But for the first time, Mira felt a spark of excitement. She wasn't just here to study life, she was here to witness humanity at its finest, creative, bold, and unstoppable. Jeb clapped his hands. "All right, we let it rest. Then we record, study, and learn. Humans do things the galaxy doesn't expect. And you just watched it happen." Mira smiled, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She had come here expecting to observe, but she had learned something far more important. Humans survived not because they followed rules, they survived because they made their own, bending the world to fit their will. And tomorrow, she knew, there would be more tests, more creatures, more challenges. But she also knew that humans, stubborn, clever, relentless humans, would always find a way. As the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the canyon, Mira finally allowed herself to relax. She had seen the plan succeed. She had seen humans at their best, and she understood one simple truth. In the galaxy, humans were not just survivors, they were masters of adaptation. The next morning, the air over Zyphera 9 was sharp and cool. Mist curled around the jagged rocks, making the crimson plains shimmer as if they were alive. Mira awoke early, her mind racing with thoughts of the Graslord. She had seen Jeb in action yesterday, witnessed his planning and skill, But today promised something different. Today, she would see humans face the unexpected. She dressed quickly, grabbing her datapad and sensors, and stepped outside. Jeb was already at the edge of the canyon, scanning the plains with his usual calm focus. The Greyslord's massive form could be seen moving in the distance, slowly patrolling its territory. Its glowing eyes flickered with intelligence, almost as if it remembered them from yesterday. "Morning," Jeb said, not taking his eyes off the creature. "It's a new day. And a new challenge. Things don't always go as planned, Mira. That's why humans survive. We adapt." Mira nodded, feeling both nervous and excited. "I'm ready," she said, though her voice carried a hint of doubt. Jeb smiled, the edges of his weathered face crinkling. "Good. You'll need that attitude." The Greyslord moved closer to the canyon, its steps careful, calculating. Unlike yesterday, it seemed wary. Its muscles tensed, and its head swung from side to side, nostrils flaring as if trying to read the air. Mira watched in fascination. The creature was enormous, easily towering over her, yet it moved with a grace that made every muscle ripple in harmony. "Notice how it reacts to the wind," Jeb whispered. "It's testing us, looking for weakness. Humans have to be faster with their minds than it is with its muscles." Mira adjusted her sensors, recording movement patterns and behavior. "It's almost smart," she murmured. Jeb chuckled quietly. "It is smart. But humans are smarter when we need to be. Let's see how it handles this morning's test." Jeb moved quickly, setting up small diversions along the canyon entrance. He scattered rocks and planted small scent markers to guide the Greyslord. Mira followed his instructions, helping to place sensors and observe reactions. She could feel her pulse quicken with every movement of the creature. Suddenly, the Greyslord paused. Its glowing eyes locked onto them, muscles coiling as if ready to strike. Mira froze, heart pounding. The creature growled low in its throat, a sound that vibrated through the ground beneath her boots. Jeb remained calm, his hand resting lightly on the sedative. "Watch, Mira. This is where humans show what we're made of. We don't panic. We observe. We react. We control." The Greyslord took a step forward, then another. It sniffed the air, uncertain. Then it charged not full speed, but fast enough to make Mira's stomach flip. The net, suspended above the canyon, was ready, but this was no longer a controlled exercise. This was real. "Now!" Jeb shouted. He pulled a lever, and the net fell. The Greyslord twisted violently, narrowly avoiding the initial strike. Rocks clattered, dust rose, and Mira held her breath as the creature thrashed, its glowing eyes flashing with intelligence and frustration. Jeb was already moving, his long staff sweeping in precise motions to guide the creature back into the canyon's narrow path. Mira watched in awe as he anticipated every movement. The Greyslord was strong, but Jeb's timing and positioning kept it contained. "Stay calm," Jeb called. "Adapt. Don't hesitate." Mira followed his instructions, sending data from her sensors to track the creature's movements. She realized how humans relied not on brute force alone, but on observation, anticipation, and clever improvisation. Every step Jeb took was calculated, yet fluid, responding to the Greyslord's instincts as if he were dancing with it. The creature thrashed, knocking over rocks and dust clouds. It lunged at Jeb once, jaws snapping. But Jeb sidestepped gracefully, jabbed the staff to redirect it, and kept it moving along the canyon. Mira gasped. The Greyslord was massive, fast, and intelligent, but Jeb's experience and patience made him untouchable. "Look at that," Mira whispered to herself. "Humans can think faster than any predator out here." The Greyslord roared, a sound that echoed through the canyon like a thunderclap. It leaped toward a narrower section, trying to break free. Mira's hands shook as she readied the sedative controls, but Jeb was faster. He rolled under the creature's swing, injected the sedative into its thick neck, and pulled back just as the creature's strength began to fade. The massive body of the Greyslord collapsed onto the canyon floor, muscles relaxing as the sedative took effect. Mira exhaled slowly, her knees weak with relief. She had seen humans in action, and it was both terrifying and inspiring. Jeb wiped sweat from his brow, looking at the creature with a mix of respect and satisfaction. "Over quickly," he muttered, repeating his familiar phrase with a grin. Mira approached cautiously, her eyes wide as she examined the sedated Grazalord. Its scales shimmered faintly, and its eyes, though dimmed, still held a hint of intelligence. "It's incredible," she said softly. "So powerful, and so aware." Jeb nodded. "Yes. That's why humans have to be clever. Strength alone doesn't win battles out here. Strategy, timing, adaptability, that's what sets us apart." Mira looked at him, realizing the truth in his words. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest, the largest, or the most advanced. But they were flexible, ingenious, and fearless. They could survive and thrive where others would perish. The Grazalord's breathing slowed, and Mira stepped closer, carefully recording notes on its condition. "We could learn so much from it," she whispered. "Its intelligence, its behavior." Jeb placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's the point, Mira. Humans survive by understanding, not destroying. By respecting the creatures we face, we can control situations safely. That's what the frontier teaches you. You adapt, or you die." Mira nodded, feeling a deep respect for both the creature and Jeb. She had expected to observe, to study, to record data, but what she had witnessed was something more profound. Human ingenuity in its rawest, most practical form. As they worked together to secure the Grazalord and ensure it would recover safely, Mira realized that the frontier was more than a place. It was a test. It pushed humans to their limits, demanded courage, and rewarded cleverness. And humans, stubborn, brilliant, fearless humans, met those demands with unmatched skill. By midday, the creature was stable, sedated enough to move safely for study. Mira followed Jeb as he prepared transport equipment, recording every step. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted. "Back on the core colonies, everything is safe, controlled, predictable. Here, humans face life and death every day." Jeb chuckled. "That's the difference, Mira. Out here, you learn to survive with your mind as much as your hands. You can't rely on luck, tech, or rules. You have to be clever, quick, and brave." Mira watched as Jeb skillfully guided the Grazalord onto a reinforced transport sled. She couldn't help but marvel at his expertise, the calm precision, and the confidence that seemed to radiate from him. Humans could thrive anywhere, she realized, even in the harshest, most unforgiving environments. Once the creature was secure, Jeb leaned against a rock, wiping sweat from his brow. "Not bad for a morning's work," he said with a grin. "Humans adapt, we survive, and we turn challenges into lessons." Mira smiled, her mind racing with possibilities. "It's amazing. I didn't realize humans could do so much without relying on machines or technology. Just brains and guts." Jeb nodded, looking toward the horizon where the plains stretched endlessly. "That's what the galaxy underestimates about us. Humans aren't just survivors. We're problem solvers, strategists, and innovators. And when the universe throws something at us, we don't hide, we respond." Mira felt a surge of excitement and respect. She had come to study life on Zephora 9, but she had learned something more important. Humans didn't just face danger, they mastered it. They turned fear into strategy, instinct into skill, and risk into triumph. As the suns climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the canyon, Mira realized the true lesson of the frontier. Humans were not merely part of the galaxy, they shaped it, challenged it, and thrived in ways no other species could. And she, standing beside Jeb, was witnessing it firsthand. The plains around them were quiet now, save for the low breathing of the sedated Grazalord. Mira looked out over the crimson landscape, understanding that danger would come again. Challenges would rise, and the unexpected would always appear. But humans, adaptable, clever, fearless humans, would always meet it head-on. And that was the essence of the frontier. The plains of Zephyrah 9 glowed softly under the light of its twin suns. Mira Tanaka walked carefully beside the transport sled where the Grazalord rested. Its massive body subdued, but alive. The creature's scales shimmered faintly in red and gold, its breathing slow and steady. Every movement it made, even in sedation, radiated raw power and intelligence. Mira adjusted her sensors, checking the data streams on her pad. She had recorded its muscle patterns, heart rate, and movement reflexes during the encounter. Now, she wanted to understand it. Not just as a specimen, but as a living, thinking being. Jeb Callahan watched her quietly, leaning on his staff. His eyes were calm, patient. "Be careful, Mira," he said. "The Grazalord is sedated, yes. But it's still aware in ways you might not notice. Humans respect creatures like this. That's why we survive. Not by fear, not by destruction, by understanding." Mira nodded, taking a deep breath. "I want to learn everything I can about it." Jeb smiled faintly. "Good. But don't get too attached. The frontier teaches lessons, not bonds. Respect is enough. Attachment can get you killed." Mira watched as Jeb approached the Grazalord, inspecting the net and the sedation points. He moved deliberately, carefully. As though even a single misstep could awaken the creature's strength, Mira realized how much experience shaped his every motion. Humans thrived not because they were naturally stronger than the creatures they faced, but because they had learned to read behavior, anticipate reactions, and respond with precision. "See that?" Jeb pointed to a small ridge near the canyon. "Even when sedated, it's calculating. Muscles relaxed, but eyes alert. It knows something changed. Humans had to earn every bit of control we have over it. It's a game of respect and skill." Mira bent closer, her pad capturing movement and biometric readings. "It's so intelligent. I can almost feel it thinking, trying to understand what we're doing." "Exactly," Jeb said. "And humans are smart enough to use that. Not to hurt, to adapt, to survive. We study, we predict, we respond. That's the difference." "For hours," Mira observed, taking detailed notes. She noted how the Grazalord's muscles reacted to changes in pressure, how it adjusted its head and limbs when sensing new movement nearby, and how its eyes tracked them even in sedation. It was learning, just as humans learned. Every reaction was a calculation, a survival instinct. "You see," Jeb said after a long silence, "the frontier isn't just about surviving, it's about learning. Humans survive because we see patterns, we read our environment, we understand creatures, weather, land, even other humans. And we use that understanding to our advantage without destroying the balance." Mira looked at him thoughtfully. "It's like a dance. Humans and the Grazalord. You're both reading each other, predicting, reacting, one move at a time." Jeb nodded. "Exactly. Out here, everything is a test. You either rise to it or you fall. The Grazalord isn't evil. It's survival. And humans? We survive by mastering the rules of survival, wherever we find them." As the day passed, Mira collected biological samples for analysis. She marveled at the creature's adaptive traits. Its muscles could flex with incredible speed, its scales were resistant to cuts, and its nervous system seemed to react faster than most species she had studied. But what fascinated her most was its intelligence, the ability to observe, learn, and predict. "Do you ever worry it'll remember this?" Mira asked. "If it wakes up fully, will it come after us?" Jeb chuckled, shaking his head. "Not likely. Grazalords aren't mindless killers. They respect strength and careful handling. We've taught it something today without hurting it. Humans do that a lot. Adapt, survive, and leave a mark without destroying everything. That's the HFY way." Mira frowned slightly. "HFY way?" Humans full of yourself, Jeb said with a grin. We survive because we think differently. We adapt. We challenge the galaxy's assumptions. And creatures like this, they notice. She laughed softly, still nervous but increasingly fascinated. I think I'm beginning to understand. Humans aren't just survivors. You're clever, bold, unpredictable. Jeb leaned back, eyes on the horizon. Unpredictable keeps us alive. No one in the galaxy expects what humans can do. That's why we last. That's why we thrive. Mira watched him work, studying the Grazalord's reactions as he made careful adjustments to the transport system. It was clear that Jeb treated the creature not as an enemy, but as a challenge to understand. She could see why humans on the frontier survived in conditions that would crush others. They respected life and danger equally. Hours passed, and the Grazalord's sedation wore off slightly. Its eyes blinked open, glowing faintly. It tried to move but remained restrained by the canyon walls and the net. Mira held her breath, uncertain what would happen. Jeb stepped closer, moving slowly, speaking in low, calm tones. Easy there, he said. We're not here to fight. We're here to learn. The Grazalord's head swiveled, tracking him, then Mira. Its body tensed, ready to react, but it did not attack. Mira felt a chill run down her spine. She realized the creature understood something that humans were not reckless. That they were clever and patient, and that they respected the balance of life. It knows, Mira whispered. It knows we're not enemies. Jeb nodded. It's a teacher as much as it's a challenge. Humans survive by learning from what the galaxy throws at us. And sometimes, we teach our challenges a lesson too. Respect, patience, skill, that's how we win. Mira took careful notes, documenting not just the creature's biology, but its responses, its intelligence, and its interaction with humans. She realized that humans were capable of a kind of mastery the galaxy underestimated. Strength mattered, yes, but brains, patience, and courage mattered even more. As the suns dipped toward the horizon, Jeb prepared to release the Grazalord into a controlled reserve, away from human settlements, but safe from predators. Mira assisted, still awed by the creature's sheer power and intelligence. Watch closely, Jeb said. This is another lesson. Even when we release, we maintain control. Humans think ahead. We plan. We adapt. That's why we survive. That's why the galaxy underestimates us. The Grazalord rose slowly, testing its limbs. It looked at Jeb, then Mira, then toward the open plains. With a cautious step, it moved toward the reserve, muscles flexing, eyes still intelligent and aware. Mira felt a thrill of awe. The creature was free, yet it had learned something from humans. Humans had survived, adapted, and earned respect without destroying life. Jeb clapped his hands softly. See? Humans do more than survive. We teach. We adapt. We thrive. That's what the frontier shows you every day. Strength alone isn't enough. Intelligence, patience, and courage. That's what makes humans remarkable. Mira smiled, feeling a mix of relief, admiration, and inspiration. She had come to study life, but she had witnessed human ingenuity in action. Humans were not just survivors, they were masters of adaptation, shaping the galaxy in ways few others could imagine. As night fell, Mira sat beside the fading glow of the plains, recording her observations. She realized that her understanding of humans had changed. They were more than clever. They were fearless, patient, strategic, and unpredictable. The Grazalord had been a test, and humans had passed not by brute force, but by intelligence, skill, and respect for the challenge. Jeb joined her, handing her a warm drink. You'll see more of this, he said. Every day on the frontier is a lesson. Every creature, every storm, every challenge teaches humans something. We survive because we adapt, and we thrive because we learn faster than anyone else. Mira sipped the drink, feeling warmth and clarity. I think I understand now, she said softly. Humans aren't just surviving. You're redefining what survival means. Jeb nodded, smiling faintly at the glowing horizon. Exactly. And tomorrow, there will be more challenges, more creatures, more tests. But humans will face them, and will survive, adapt, and thrive. That's what the frontier is, and that's what makes us remarkable. Mira gazed out over the plains, the Greyslord now calm in its new reserve. The twin moons rose, casting silver light across the red landscape. She felt a profound respect, not just for the creatures, but for humans. They were clever, bold, unpredictable. And in the galaxy, that made them extraordinary. The twin moons of Zyphora 9 hung low in the night sky, casting soft silver light across the crimson plains. The air was quiet, except for the faint rustle of alien grass and the occasional distant call of nocturnal creatures. Mira Tanaka stood beside Jeb Callahan, watching the Greyslord as it moved slowly through the controlled reserve. The massive creature's scales reflected the moonlight, its eyes gleaming with intelligence even as it explored its new surroundings. Mira adjusted her sensors, checking the last of the readings she had collected. Her heart still raced from the events of the past 2 days. She had expected to study alien life, record data, and return with samples. What she had experienced instead was far more profound. She had witnessed humans at work, in their natural element, and the lessons they taught were as sharp as any predator's claws. Jeb leaned on his staff, his eyes following the Greyslord. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said quietly. Mira nodded. "It's incredible, and it's calm now, safer." "Yes," Jeb replied, "but that calm is not weakness. That calm is respect. We didn't just control it. We understood it. Humans survive not because we dominate blindly, but because we learn, adapt, and act with precision." Mira studied him, finally beginning to see the depth of his words. Humans had survived on Zyphora 9 and countless other frontier worlds not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, flexible, and fearless. They could read the land, anticipate threats, and adapt to challenges in ways that even the galaxy underestimated. She walked a few steps closer to the Greyslord, carefully observing its movements. The creature sniffed the air, lifting its massive head, and then lowering it to investigate the small, glowing plants nearby. It paused, its eyes flicking toward the humans, then back to the terrain. Mira realized the creature had learned something from the encounter. It understood they were not its enemies, but beings to be acknowledged and respected. "You know," Mira said softly, "it's almost like it's changed. Or maybe we changed it." Jeb smiled faintly. "Maybe both. That's the frontier. Every encounter teaches you something. Sometimes you teach, sometimes you learn, sometimes you do both. And humans have a way of leaving their mark without destroying what's important." Mira thought about everything she had seen: the careful planning, the quick thinking, the patience, the respect for life even in the midst of danger. It was more than survival, it was mastery. Humans did not simply endure the galaxy. They reshaped it, bending challenges to their skill and ingenuity. The Greyslord moved closer to a shallow water pool, dipping its snout to drink. Mira's sensors picked up subtle muscle adjustments, reflexes, and signs of intelligence. She scribbled notes furiously, recording the creature's behavior as much as its biology. She realized she was witnessing a lesson in human ingenuity as much as a study of alien life. Jeb clapped his hands softly. "All right, it's time to let it go fully. We've taught it enough, and we've learned enough. Respect, safety, and knowledge, that's what we leave behind. Humans survive, but we don't destroy unnecessarily." Mira watched as Jeb carefully removed the restraining net. The Greyslord shifted, testing its freedom, then stepped forward slowly, its movements deliberate. It sniffed the air, then glanced at the humans once more. Mira felt a chill run down her spine. There was intelligence in those eyes, a silent acknowledgement of what had passed. "It's beautiful," Mira whispered. barely able to contain her awe. And powerful. And I think it respects you, Jeb chuckled. Respect is earned. Humans earn it all the time. And the galaxy forgets that about us. Mira studied him closely. She had come expecting to find clever biology, alien behavior, and scientific data. Instead, she had found something greater. Humans, at their finest. Bold, clever, adaptable, patient, and fearless. Humans could survive in environments that would crush others. Not because of brute strength or technology alone, but because of ingenuity, understanding, and courage. The Greyslord began exploring the edges of the reserve, sniffing and moving with a cautious curiosity. Mira could see it adjusting to its new surroundings, its eyes still alert but calmer than before. The encounter had ended, but both humans and the creature had learned something. Mira realized that the frontier was not about winning or losing, it was about growth, adaptation, and understanding. Jeb stood beside her, watching the Greyslord move into the moonlit plains. You see, Mira, he said, humans survive because we think differently. We don't just react. We plan, we adapt, and we respect what's around us. And when the galaxy underestimates us, we thrive. That's the real HFY lesson. Mira smiled, feeling a sense of clarity she had never experienced before. I understand now. Humans aren't just surviving, they're mastering the challenge, redefining what it means to exist out here. Jeb nodded. Exactly. And tomorrow, there will be new challenges, new creatures, new storms, new tests. But humans will meet them, and will survive, adapt, and thrive. Because that's what we do. Mira looked out over the plains, the Greyslord now moving freely in its reserve. She felt a profound respect not just for the creatures they studied, but for humans themselves. Humans were clever, bold, and unpredictable. They did not simply endure, they shaped their surroundings, adapted to threats, and turned challenges into triumphs. As the night deepened, the twin moons cast long shadows across the red plains. Mira realized that she had changed. Her understanding of life, intelligence, and survival had expanded. She had come to Zyphora 9 to study alien creatures. But she had witnessed something far greater. The power of human ingenuity and adaptability. Jeb finally broke the silence. You ready to leave this for the night? Mira nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She followed him back to the small ranch, looking back one last time at the Greyslord. It paused, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight, then continued exploring. Mira felt certain that it would remember humans, not as enemies, but as beings capable of thought, strategy, and respect. As they reached the ranch, Jeb handed Mira a cup of steaming drink. The night was calm, and the stars sparkled overhead like distant diamonds. Mira sipped quietly, thinking of everything that had happened, the planning, the encounter, the observation, and the release. Every step had been a lesson in survival, ingenuity, and respect. You know, Mira said softly, I came here to observe life, but I think I learned more about humans than the Greyslord. Jeb chuckled. Good. That's the point. Humans aren't the strongest, the fastest, or the largest species in the galaxy. But we survive. We adapt. We thrive. And when the galaxy doesn't expect it, we redefine what's possible. Mira smiled, her mind filled with the images of the Greyslord, the plains, and Jeb's calm, confident presence. She realized that humans had a power beyond physical strength. The power of intelligence, courage, adaptability, and respect for life. The twin moons rose higher, casting a silver glow across the ranch and the surrounding plains. Mira felt a sense of peace and clarity. The frontier was dangerous, unpredictable, and often unforgiving, but humans were capable of extraordinary things. They survived where others would fail, not by chance, but by cleverness, skill, and unwavering courage. As she prepared to rest for the night, Mira looked out over Zyphora 9 one last time. She thought of the Grazalord, now exploring its new home, and of Jeb, standing steadfast in the moonlight. She understood that the frontier was not just a place, it was a test, a teacher, and a proving ground. And humans, she realized with quiet awe, were masters of it all. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new challenges. More creatures, more tests, more lessons, but she also knew that humans, clever, bold, adaptable humans, would meet every challenge with skill, patience, and courage, and they would survive, thrive, and redefine the rules wherever they went. Mira closed her eyes, feeling a sense of awe, inspiration, and understanding. Humans were extraordinary not because the galaxy expected them to be, but because they refused to be ordinary. And in the quiet, silver-lit plains of Zyphora 9, that truth shone brighter than any star.